Happy Friday, everyone. Welcome to the show. I'm your host, the Unhinged Father. Hope you're all having a fantastic week so far. Going to be taking these Friday shows in a little bit of a different direction, similar to what I did on the podcast episode that I labeled Solo Freestyle. Just going to be taking different subjects that are top of mind for me, things that have come up either in the news or that I've been thinking about or even have just come up within my life, and talking about them, giving my commentary on them, what I think. Some of it may be funny, some of it may be a little harsh. Who knows? Maybe some of it might be educational. And if you're not a big fan of this new format, or if you want me to try and take the podcast in a little bit of a different direction, I'm always open to suggestions, advice. I feel like a big asshole if I'm just sitting here saying, like, oh, I want to hone my craft. I've been podcasting for like 13 seconds amateurly and not very well. So, that being said, I really do enjoy doing the podcast and want to continue on and hopefully make it better for not just myself, but for any of you people out there listening. So this first subject I'm going to jump into, I've got a feeling I'm going to be on the wrong side of popular opinion here, and I'm prepared to just hang on that cross for as long as I need to, because I think that I'm probably right in this situation. It may be a little harsh. You may not like it. If you don't like it, tough shit. It's my opinion. Doesn't mean that you need to follow by it. But in context, one of the things that I've been doing is trying to find things that have been like trending or different ideas, just because right now my life has been consumed with t-ball, swim lessons, school, my work, laundry, cleaning the house, all of the responsibilities of being a parent, of being a dad. That's really, whenever I say top of mind, that's always top of mind, because those responsibilities never go away. But I understand that I can't just sit here and talk to you guys about doing my laundry and how to get tough grass stains out of baseball pants and any of the other things that come along with being a parent. Some of it, all good, but if it's the entire podcast, it just sounds like it's a bitch fest for me. So I'm going on like Google Trends, BuzzFeed, fucking US Weekly Trends, anything that I can to just get some idea on like what the outside world is doing, what's going on in the world, what are some things that I should be aware of. And as I'm scrolling through, the one that stands out is just like ladies mauled, not mauled to death, but a lady's left arm is mauled off by family dog. And I just feel like I see these stories all the time now. And I think it speaks a little bit to the society, the culture that we've developed, where we've always had dogs. Dogs have always been a part of people's lives, but I feel like we've gone so far. Instead of like having kids now, everyone's like, no, yeah, I got my kids. See those two over there? Yeah, which one's yours? I got the Cocker Spaniel and that fucking Labrador right there. Those are my two kids. In some instances, dogs have replaced children in our society, which, if you think that dogs are behaving more poorly now than they did before, fucking makes sense, right? Because we've become shittier as parents, I feel like, too. Parents can't hold boundaries with their kids. Dog mom and dads can't hold fucking boundaries with their dogs. They don't want to restrict their creative essence. They want their dogs to be free like they were once before. Get back to their wolf heritage. It's like, dude, your fucking Bichon Freeze is not a wolf, okay? Anyways, I'm getting off point here. I feel like my attitude towards dogs and pets has really kind of changed over my lifetime. I used to be big on having big dogs and was just kind of like, hey, people could do whatever the fuck they want with their dogs. Not my business. But now that I have kids and I've seen how people are so irresponsible with dogs, it just really gets underneath my skin. Like, put your dog on a fucking leash. I don't care if your dog is well behaved. Like, if it's not sticking right next to you while it's on its leash and you're out in public where there's other dogs or there's kids, it just fucking pisses me off. And listen, I may be completely off my rocker here. You can be like, my dog's a perfect little angel, but dogs are still wild. Speaking of their wolf heritage, any dog can bite, any dog can snap. They're just like human beings. They can have these bad things. And do I blame the dog for that? No, absolutely not. I blame their shit owner for not being responsible for them, for not imposing these limitations. I'm more of a small dog person now. We've got our own two little mutts. They come from a very distinguished line of breeders, straight from the dumpster, 100% mutt. Weird ass looking dogs. but I love them. They're good little dogs. And you know what I don't have to worry about? I'm always still in the back of my mind, like the dogs can bite. Of course, when we first got our new puppy, he tore open my son's ear, had to take him to the ER and get like 8 stitches. Not his fault. My son was holding this toy above his head, and when they're puppies, they had those little razor sharp teeth. Dog went for the toy, tore the kid's ear open. But that's just it. Dogs can just flip on a switch. And these little dogs aren't going to do a ton of damage. But if you've got a fucking pit bull or a German shepherd, and then you've got a little kid and that thing decides to take a bite of them, man, it's bad news. So I don't even know where I was going with all this stuff, right? I just read another story about some lady who was mauled by her dog that she said was never going to fucking ever hurt a fly. And yeah, I just think that we as a society have really gone and we're treating dogs like their family, which is a good thing. But at the same time, need to be responsible pet owners out there. There needs to be some discipline. There needs to be some restrictions. You can't just do whatever the fuck you want with your dog. And if you especially have a breed that's a big one, you put that motherfucker on a leash and don't have it be roaming free where there's kids or other animals that can hurt. I don't care if it's the sweetest dog with you. You never know when something can change and that dog flips. It's not worth that chance because that dog does have the potential to do some serious damage. And that's my hot take on dogs. So for all you dog lovers out there or people who don't put your dogs on leash, just go ahead and start sending in the hate email right now. I'm ready for it. I'm ready for all of that hate that comes from the people that love their dogs more than they love people. And speaking of hate mail, as many of you may know, student loans been started back up. We got a nice little break from student loans during the pandemic. President Biden talked about giving student loan forgiveness to people. You've got the left, you've got the right. Both of them are talking. It's like, we didn't go to college. We don't want to pay for someone to get a degree in underwater basket weaving with an emphasis on women's studies, while people on the left are just like, we're getting educated. We should have free education in this country. We have a right to higher education, and we shouldn't have to pay for it as well. And I'm just sitting here right in the middle like, God, am I taking fucking crazy pills? Like, I get both sides of what people are saying, but there's some common sense solutions to a lot of the problems I'm seeing. And I don't really ever see anyone talk about these things. So if you don't know, student loans are something that I know quite a bit about, not from my own student loan debt, although I've almost got that fully paid off. My degree in sociology is just taking me to the moon for sure. But yeah, we've got some student loan debt that we're working through as well. And the big thing is that a lot of the student loan debt, where it comes from, is from federally funded institutions or state funded institutions, right? You have a lot of these schools that are public institutions. They get grants and other type of like funds from the government, from taxpayer dollars. People go to these schools and they end up taking out loans for these schools. A lot of times they don't take out private loans because it's quote unquote better to take out a public loan, some sort of student loan through a public agency. They get out of school, they think they're going to make a shit ton of money, and the job market sucks, and they have to start paying back these student loans. You know, a couple things can be true at the same time, right? People should have access to go to these higher education institutions. They should have a way to get there to pay for it. All of these things can be super beneficial. I don't think that every degree that's out there is going to be helpful to someone, but if you want to go get a higher education, even if the degree isn't neurobiology or something like that, I think that you could learn quite a bit. You can learn critical thinking skills and different reading skills. There's a lot of stuff that you can learn within college that aren't necessarily directly related to the whatever degree that you're getting. That being said, it's not free. The money got to come from somewhere. Even if you go to a publicly funded institution, like there still are costs that are associated with it. But the biggest issue that you have, right, you've got the two sides. I should be able to go to school for free, and I don't want my tax dollars going to people getting shit degrees. Cool. Where's the middle ground? What's something that we're not looking towards? One of the things that we're not looking towards is, why is the cost of higher education continually going higher and higher, especially when a lot of these institutions are publicly funded. They're receiving money from the government, from tax dollars. Why is the tuition going up exponentially? Why is it going so high? That's one of the problems. You're taking out so much money to go to these educational institutions that, of course, your payments are going to be super high. On top of that, you're taking out these federal loans to pay for this, right? You're taking out loans from the government. You're taking out taxpayer dollar loans to pay for a school that's also subsidized by taxpayer dollars. So essentially, the government's got its hands within all of this stuff, right? And now you've got the government saying like, well, we want to forgive loans, but we don't want to forgive loans. The student loans are a burden on society. But it's like, dude, you created the fucking problem. And one of the biggest problems is the fact that the interest rates for these fucking loans are so astronomically high. You would think that federal loans would have lower interest rates. Hell, a lot of these loans are between like 5 to 11% interest rate. And there's there's something real small right there. Some small change that you could make that would help people to be able to go to college, take out whatever loans that they need, but getting a loan to where it's essentially where the interest rate is there to just cover whatever administrative costs you have. And I don't know what that would be, but you know what, 0.5%, 1% of the loan covers administrative costs of actually getting these loans out to the students. So that way people can go, the money isn't gone, right? They're still responsible for paying back whatever money that they take out, but they're not just hit with these huge interest payments to where they never end up paying off the fucking loan. They're only paying on their interest because they've got these, if you're going to graduate school, you've got $200,000, $300,000 in fucking student loan debt. That's a house. Well, it used to be a house. It's not a house anymore. That's a shitty apartment complex in Oakland. But no one ever talks about like those small things. It's either like, hey, let's forgive everything. Let's get rid of all of the student loan debt, or let's not give any money away. Like, let's not even do student loans. Let's not do anything. I don't want to have any like type of subsidies for them. If they want to go to school, they need to go get this large private loan where they're paying a ton of interest. With that, I don't really see a huge issue either. Like, you probably would get a lower interest rate if you went through a private loan in some of these cases. The other problem is, like I already mentioned, the cost to a lot of these publicly funded institutions is just so fucking high. And I don't know what they're spending all their money on. I don't want to get into all of that stuff, but it shouldn't cost more to go to a publicly funded institution than it does to go to like a privately funded institution. And I've seen that, especially at the graduate level. So yeah, I agree that student loans is a huge blight and a huge burden on society right now, because if people aren't going to be able to, like, we're giving that money away. These are taxpayer dollars that we're giving to people to go to school. And if they don't end up getting a degree in something that they could actually make money in, they're going to default it on it anyways. So the true goal is to try and get people to pay back their money, not to default on it, and get those tax dollars back. It shouldn't be to make money on it. And that's what I feel like with the interest rates. It's either that they're trying to compensate for the fact that they know that they're giving people money to get degrees that they're never going to fucking use, and they're never going to make enough money to pay it back. So they're just basically jacking up the interest rate on every other fucking person to try and compensate for the fact that there's going to be so many people that default, or they're just trying to make money. This has become like a money-making organization. And I think that part is wrong. I don't think that education should be, at least publicly funded education, should not be a money-making endeavor. But as always, it seems like the government just makes everything worse, and they sit there and spout a bunch of just, blow a bunch of smoke up people's ass and tell them they're going to make everything better, forgive their student loans. And everyone just seems to forget that they're the ones who fucked it up in the beginning. Why are you going to give more power to them to continue to fuck shit up? There's simple solutions to a lot of these things, but simple solutions aren't necessarily always wanted or needed, because common sense, that shit ain't so common anymore. And now I look down at the time and realize that I've been talking for a long time. I'm not passionate about student loan, since we have one of those mortgage size student loans that we are working through as well. I was going to touch on a couple of other subjects, but I think I might only end up getting through 3 of these, right? And the one I'm going to cut out is just, I'm mostly going to cut it out because I don't know much about the story, but I have been seeing, and I'm sure a lot of you have been seeing, different protests, pro-Palestinian protests that have been out there. And I'm not going to sit here and say that it's every single one of them. I don't know all of the context around it, and so I'm not going to dive into that. But what I did see was someone burning an American flag. I was hearing chants of death to America, death to Israel, and a lot of other just what in my mind looked like super hateful protests. Both sides have a right to disagree and to argue and for there to be discourse on this. I'm not going to say who's right and who's wrong. I'm sure that it's probably somewhere in the middle, just like most things in this world. That's not my job to get in between that. I'm a suburban dad sitting at his computer, talking to it by himself for all the tens of fans out there. What I will say is that when I start hearing people say, death to America, this country is so rotten, it needs to be stripped down to its core and rebuilt, that just irks me because, yeah, I agree that we can make America better. There's a lot of different things that we can do that would improve this country. And I don't necessarily like the way that we're going down this path. But when I hear people come in and say, hey, let's tear the entire system down and rebuild it, it's like, rebuild it in what image? Like the fucking shitty countries that people are protesting from. It's like, yeah, let's strip. We fled from a fucking country that's either war torn or in economic turmoil or something, right? A lot of people are coming over here seeking asylum, all that stuff, right? They get here and like, this system is so shitty, we need to strip it down and rebuild it. But like, what image are you going to rebuild it in? Not like the fucking countries that are super like war torn, that are in civil war, that are having all of these things happen. Why would we try to rebuild it like that? That hasn't worked. So instead of trying to strip something down and rebuild it in an image of something that's already failed, we need to tweak the system that we already have. And the system was built for there to be some of these tweaks. When I hear people talk about like the Constitution and not being like a living and breathing document, about how the founding fathers set certain things in place, like I get that in principle, but at the same time, we do need to make advancements. We do need to progress as a society. The founding fathers had no clue about social media or about automatic guns or nuclear fucking missiles or cell phones. Like they didn't have any of these concepts when they wrote this stuff down. Society progresses and we need to progress those laws with it. Do we need to strip everything away? No, we need to take those principles. We need to see what would make things better. And then we need to try to incorporate them within a democratic process. But when I hear death to America, tear it down, that shit just doesn't fly with me. That's not something that I think is going to make this country any better. And we're already at a point where life is fucking hard enough as it is. Why make it any harder than we have to? And I understand that I'm coming from a different perspective than a lot of these people that are saying these things, but I don't think that they're going to make things better for anyone. They're not going to make things better for themselves. They're not going to make things better for me. And I'm a human being. And at the end of the day, I've got my best self-interest at mind. Like any other person out there, right? I may be able to do some self-sacrificing things. I may help people when I can, but truly, at the end of the day, the things that I care the most about are my family. I'm going to do what I need to keep my family safe, to keep them fed, to keep them taken care of. That's the most important thing to me. And if you can tell me with a straight face, nah, that's not what I care about, I will just tell you you're a fucking liar. And now on to a happy subject. I'm not sure if I've ever talked about it on this show before, but in our household, we are a Bluey household. If you don't know what Bluey is, you are missing out. Even if you don't have kids and you've never seen the show Bluey, drop what you're doing, go over to Disney Plus, turn on Bluey, and just start watching that show because it is the fucking GOAT. The GOAT cartoon. It's the best family of blue heeler dogs. Speaking of dogs, you've got Bluey, Bingo, Bandit, who is just, obviously dad standards, and Chili. And you get to follow all of the adventures of these dogs. It's short episodes, family friendly. It doesn't seem like there's these like underlying messages. They're not trying to indoctrinate your kids with these different thoughts, theories, stuff like that. They keep it pretty wholesome, right? That's how I would describe it. It's a wholesome, fun show, but it's also hilarious. Like there's so many jokes in there for parents that are absolutely hilarious. Like I always find myself laughing. I'll catch myself crying sometimes because they bring up some real emotions, especially within parents, because they're going through a lot of the stuff that we're going through right now, and they do it in such a relatable way. It's awesome. It's a great show. If you haven't seen it, go and watch it. I'll probably talk more about Bluey in the future, but they just had like a 30-minute episode come out It's like their season finale for season 3. And it was so good. Just hit all the feels, super fun. There was a wedding in it. It was great. So I don't know where I was going with all that. I just wanted to express my love for the show Bluey. And then if you want some real bangers in terms of music, go and listen to the Bluey album, Dance Mode, and Keepy Uppy. Definitely two of the favorites in this household for sure. And that'll do it for this week's episode of the Unhinged Father podcast. Hope you enjoyed it. Definitely felt like I was a little bit all over the place. This new format of me just kind of talking through different subjects. I'm going to refine it, fine tune it. But I appreciate any of you that are listening and who enjoy the podcast. Definitely go out there, give me a follow on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasting needs met. Feel free to leave me a 5-star review if you think that I need it. And as always, if there's anyone that you think that would enjoy the podcast, people that are looking for a new podcast recommendation, feel free to refer them to this podcast, right? I'm sure that there's something on here for everyone, or maybe they absolutely hate it and you don't like them. And so that's a good thing too. Either way, I'm appreciative. In the words of my boy, Joe Dirt, I'm going to keep on keeping on. Hopefully y'all keep on listening. If there is any suggestions or you have any advice for me on the podcast where you think I should be taking some of these different directions I'm going, where I'm kind of testing different waters, let me know. Shoot me a call, give me a message, however you want to get in touch with me. But I appreciate all of you. Have a fantastic weekend. And as always, be good, try hard, do your best.